There are a lot of ways to tell someone you're pregnant. You can sit them down and have a heartfelt conversation. You can do one of those big reveal moments with cupcakes or balloons or whatever. Or if you're Mindy Lahiri, you can take 30 pregnancy tests, mark one of them negative yourself, panic for an entire episode, and somehow still end up being the one who doesn't tell the father.
I saw you eat the popsicle and then draw this little minus sign on it and then pee on it for some reason.
It's because I have crazy pregnancy brain, Nipa.
One of the things the Mindy Project does really well is turning big life moments into total chaos. Normal sitcoms might treat a pregnancy reveal like a serious turning point. You know, quiet conversation, emotional music, maybe a hug. This show takes the opposite approach. Instead, Mindy spends the entire episode trying to figure out how to tell Danny she's pregnant, while also getting dragged into a bizarre family dinner involving Danny's parents, a suspended 12-year-old, a seafood massacre, and a surprising new look for Annette. So the real question of this episode isn't just how Danny is going to find out, it's whether Mindy is going to survive dinner with the Castellanos long enough to tell him at all. And with that in mind, welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the 15th episode of the third season of the Mindy Project titled Dinner at the Castellanos, written by Charlie Grandy and directed by David Rogers. All right, let's see how this one stacks up, starting with the episode overview. So we're going to start off here with the aftermath of Mindy finding out that she's pregnant. She's taken 30 pregnancy tests, which have all been positive except one, which was actually her just peeing on a popsicle stick and then marking it negative. She's in denial here, but she realizes there's just no way out of it. She's got to tell Danny. So she tries. She calls him to tell him, and it just never feels like the right time. As evidence for this, the show is going to give us an example of one of those calls. He just so happens to be in a restaurant when she calls, and there's a screaming kid there. And he's going to be like, you know what, remind me I don't want kids until I'm old and deaf. You know, Larry King got it right. Now, I can see how that would feel like an inopportune time, but also, I mean, he's already talking about kids. Seems like it could be maybe a good segue, too. But Mindy's got a plan. She's gonna fly to New York, take Danny on a romantic weekend getaway, and break the news during that. However, when she gets to Danny's apartment, she walks in to find Danny's dad and little sister already there. You see, little Danny, as in Danny's little sister, whose name is Danielle, has gotten suspended from school because she slapped her teacher and her principal, which is really crazy. Like, okay, as an example, I once had a year where I had 45 suspension days. But I never hit a teacher because that's expulsion. That's bonkers. Either way, they're there, so the romantic getaway is canceled. Which, as Mindy says, is probably a good thing because she doesn't want to start another forest fire. So for some reason, instead of the weekend getaway, they're all just going to go to the office. Why is everyone at the office? Is this Friday during the day or something? I don't know, but Morgan is not going to be happy when he finds out that the guy there is Danny's real dad. If you hurt this boy again, I'll kill you, is what Morgan says to this guy. But Mindy's going to head off to her office. She's going to end up getting a phone call from Annette, Danny's mom, and though no coercion takes place at all, she's going to let it spill that Danny's dad and little sister are in New York. Now this is going to get Annette all charged up, and Annette is going to somehow convince Mindy that it's a good idea that she invite Alan and little Danny to dinner. Now I get that Mindy is frazzled here, and they're presenting that she has pregnancy brain and whatnot, but this was a little far-fetched. Sometimes it felt like they were just throwing realism to the wind and just being like, look at this nonsense, funny, right? But Mindy needs some advice. Because Danny told her not to go to the dinner because it's a family thing. So who's she gonna go to? She obviously can't go to Danny. Certainly not Morgan, right? So she calls Peter in Austin. Now, I really thought that Adam Pally was actually off the show at this point, but I guess not yet. So we're gonna get some fun lines from him. Like when he's talking about the idea that Danny basically said she's not family. Wasn't that the whole point of you tricking him into getting you pregnant? Of course, Mindy's like, I told you that I wasn't trying to get pregnant. Or another good one is that he says he's had 2 heart attacks since he moved to Texas. Anyway, he convinces Mindy that she needs to be the human version of HPV and just invite herself along, which is exactly what she does. Mindy and little Danny seem to be the only ones not nervous about going to Annette's for dinner. When they get to the door, Annette is wearing a blonde wig and putting on airs. Dot, who of course is there as well, is doing no such thing and is consistently calling Alan out for being human garbage. Turns out, Dr. Ladro is still dating Annette and she wants to show him off. Alan doesn't seem like he could care less about any of it, but that just pushes Annette harder. She's doing some sort of seafood jamboree or something, which includes having Mindy kill some eels in a tub with a mallet. I mean, what the hell is going on here? But soon we're gonna find out why Alan really brought little Danny to Big Danny. He's trying to pawn her off on Danny to get Danny to raise another one of Alan's kids. And amazingly, Danny gets taken in by Alan's logic. He's like, yeah, it would be best for little Danny if I did that. I find it hard to believe that this wouldn't at the very least be triggering of some trauma for Danny. I just can't imagine that this logic would actually get past Danny at all. But it does. And when Mindy hears him just agree to it, she's pissed. She knows the kid is just being a brat and she's determined to prove it. And so to prove it, she takes little Danny's phone and holds it over a glass of water, threatening to drop it in, unless she fesses up. And what do you know? Mindy was right. Little Danny is bored, doesn't want to live in the desert, and hates that she has a really old man as a father. Then she calls Mindy a bitch and slaps her in the face. Now, Mindy's gonna slap her back. And I know she's only 12 or whatever, but like, you slap somebody, you better be prepared to get slapped back. I'm actually really surprised that Danny chastises Mindy after this. Now, of course, Mindy's gonna end up getting a little petulant and be like, fine, I guess if I'm so terrible, then I should just leave. And this is so obviously baiting you to disagree with her, but instead, Danny just says, yeah, you're probably right. You fucking moron, what are you doing? She can't believe it, and frankly, neither can I. She's like, you're gonna send me out there in the cold with nothing but my pepper spray and my gun? So when Danny goes back to the table, it's gonna come out in front of everybody that Alan is still trying to pawn little Danny off on Danny. And Annette is going to finally bring some logic to this household. Basically, she's like, this is what happened, and Mindy slapped her? So she's gonna run out and go try to talk to Mindy before Mindy leaves. And Mindy's actually right about to get into a taxi. But Annette is like, you did the right thing. She's gonna tell a story about how Richie once said that he was gonna jump off the Empire State Building because he was mad at Annette about something. And Annette's like, I gave him $10 and said, enjoy the view. Mindy's like, you know, I do enjoy hearing the origin stories of gay men, but I'm not sure I need to hear this right now. But Annette's point is that sometimes when kids are being brats, you just have to call them on. But on top of all this, Annette is gonna realize that Mindy is pregnant. And then Annette, in like a daze, excited that she's gonna become a grandmother, is gonna walk back into the house while Mindy's still standing out there. And Mindy's like, should I go back in? But the thing that I don't understand here is like, obviously Annette is about to go tell Danny, or not even necessarily tell him, but it's gonna come out in front of Danny, right? Why would Mindy not follow her in? But she doesn't. Of course, Annette is gonna let it spill right away, and then Danny is gonna leave and go looking for Mindy. But she's not outside anymore. He goes to his place, she's not there. He goes to her place, she's not there. But what he does see is evidence of where she might be. You see, there's an empty pie wrapper from these old pies that she can only get at the hospital vending machine, apparently. So that clues him in. He's gonna go to the hospital, he's gonna find her there, sleeping on the couch in the break room with a bunch of empty pie wrappers around her. But we are gonna get a touching moment here. Mindy's gonna go on a mini rant about how she can raise the baby without him and it's okay. He doesn't need to feel obligated, but he just looks at her and says, we're a family. So it ends on a strong note, but will it be enough to save it in the rankings? Let's find out.
Oh, wait.
So the rank is where I rank the episode on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. But before I dive into the rankings here, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story. And there's actually no B story in this one, which is odd for the Mindy Project. It's just straight up the story of how Mindy finds a way to tell Danny that she's pregnant and ultimately doesn't end up telling him. Annette does. Still though, that's a really solid story for a sitcom, so I gave it a 4.5. So that brings us to acting. And while the story is good, the actual writing of the episode was super weird. They do a lot of weird stuff in this, which makes for the acting to maybe feel a little uneven because of it. Still though, they carried it off well. Chris Messina and Mindy's moment at the end was really well done. I gave it a 3.75. So that brings us to dialogue. So there are definitely funny parts, but for the most part, it just wasn't that funny and was often just plain weird. It just felt like they were leaning way too heavy into the absurd, which I feel like actually happens in a lot of sitcoms after a while. They just sort of go, fuck it, let's just get goofy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This was it doesn't. I gave it a 2. So that brings us to episode coherence. So this is gonna go in line with the previous category's comments. This was just plain weird. That being said, I don't know that that means it was incoherent. I think one of the biggest problems I had with coherence was that Mindy was so clueless about Annette. Like, Mindy didn't think it was a bad idea to invite Danny's father and little sister to a dinner with Annette? That seems really bizarre to me. I suppose I can buy that she let it slip that Alan and little Danny were in town, but it just felt like they should have gone about meeting up with them in a different way. Like maybe Annette could have just shown up at Danny's apartment with Dr. Ledreau and Dot, of course, and been like, it's our regular monthly dinner. And then you could have Danny be like, what regular monthly dinner? And then she could just be like, well, since I'm here, I'll just make you guys dinner. I'm not saying that I'm like the best writer. I'm not saying that I would have done this better. It just feels like to me, that would have been a slightly more natural and maybe even funny way of having this happen. I don't know. You can let me know in the comments if you think that I'm crazy for that. I gave it a 3. So that brings us to the last category, which is character relatability. The underlying emotions I can definitely relate to. The nervousness in telling him, Annette's desire to seem like her life has been great since Alan left. Also, Danny's reaction to finding out that Mindy was pregnant is definitely relatable as well. And actually, even Alan is relatable because of how they've established his character. I could relate to him wanting to do that, to fear being a father. Little Danny less so. That's just way too violent for something as simple as just I'm bored. Anyway, I gave it a 4. So some not terrible rankings altogether, but it's going to need a decent laugh counter to stay in the top 3 tiers, and it did not get that because it only got me 9 times. A rare single-digit laugh counter for the Mindy Project. So that's going to put the grand total of the episode at a 26.25, which makes it a mediocre. As for the series average, this drops it down to a 36.34, which keeps it in the holy grail. And if you're ranking along with me, drop your score in the comments. I'd be curious to see how we're aligned on this, especially with the laugh counter. Did it get you double digits? But anyway, thanks for listening and or watching. Check out my other Mindy Project ranking episodes or any of my other sitcom or movie ranking episodes on this channel. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. For up-to-date rankings, you can check out my website at therankpodcast.com, or you can email me there at john@therankpodcast.com. And if you really want to support the show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/therankpodcast. But I will leave you with this. You know, Alan must have really cast Annette pretty wide to meet her.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, I don't know what to say here. I'm just doing this. Okay, let me start over here.
Let's take it from the top, guys.